Be going over my first impressions of the Vessel of Hatred PTR, so let's go ahead and hop on into it. I know most people are going to want to know how is Companion Druid, so absolutely bonkers single target damage. I had a Lightning Spear Sork in my party, and they really couldn't keep up with my DPS, and it was by a pretty large margin. However, the AoE struggle is still real, but with Dark Citadel coming out, we may see Companion Druid become a boss killer. So to give you like an idea, it took me like forever to clear T4. Now keep in mind, I don't have max gear, I don't have max glyphs. There's a lot of farming that I could do in order to try to make that easier. But with the gear I had here, which this roughly is the gear that I was using, I was able to clear the rift, but that took me a decent amount of time, and then I killed the boss in like 10 seconds. So like that's kind of the state of Companion Druid again, is just the AoE still isn't there. Now, even with the Ravens buffs and stuff like that, but keep in mind, again, I am so far out. For whatever reason, they use like a snapshot of a character like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so I don't even have like, you know, like GAs on everything, because like I pretty much had like maxed out companion gear, and they're using the version of my Druid that does not have maxed out companion gear, right? Like you can see here, my Storm's Companion only has +8 to wolves, whereas before I had +16 to wolves. So there's still a lot of stuff that I'm missing. I don't really have any ancestrals. I did make an ancestral Tyrael's Might, as it seems like these always come out with a greater affix on them when you craft them. So that's pretty cool. But that's really, you know, that's really about it. Like you can see here that I'm underneath item power of what I would really need to be to do tier 4 on a lot of the pieces that, you know, that I'm using. But yeah, but that being said, I think with Dark Citadel coming out, if we do end up seeing, you know, the need for a boss killer because we reach a difficulty that's just too high for people to be able to kill the boss alone or something like that, we might see, you know, we might end up seeing the Companion Druid come into being a boss killer, because I mean, it's a very noticeable difference whenever you bring a Companion Druid in. So first off, key passive is amazing when it comes to the Druid. This thing right here, One with Nature, you get an extra companion skill, you get 50% increased damage, and you gain the passive effect of Ravens, Wolves, and Poison Creeper. I did in fact test it, so Shepherds does work regardless of how many companions you have on the bar. So if you have Poison Creeper not on the bar, it doesn't matter, you're still going to get that passive effect to go towards Shepherds, because notice it says 3 Poison Creepers inside of the passive column, so you now actually have the flexibility to change around the build, which is good. Because while Poison Creeper is good to proc Heightened Malice, it doesn't really do all that much damage. I mean, I do still need to get like a better helmet. I need to get like, you know, a +7 ranks to my skill helmet and stuff like that, and try to maybe min-max a little bit more. But I think Poison Creeper is still going to fall behind Ravens. Ravens is seeming to do quite a bit more damage now. So Stormcrow aspect is pretty sweet, as it does something I wasn't expecting. It actually cuts your passive attack speed in half. So even if you have no attack speeds on your helmet, this will actually cut it down to where it's 3 seconds. Just automatically, it'll take it down to where it's 3 seconds once you have your Stormcrow's aspect on. If you haven't seen that aspect yet, your Ravens are down to lightning damage, which is increased by 34%, or well, actually it goes up to 50%. The active deals its full damage in half the time, and enemies inside of it are stunned. It really is a fantastic legendary. I very much enjoy using it. However, there is a problem. So Wild Rage no longer is useful because we do not run Bestial Rampage, and they did not change it. It still does the exact same effect of giving our companions double the bonus from Werebear and Werewolf, right? So unfortunate, right? We're never really going to use this again. There isn't particularly a reason to ever use Bestial Rampage again, because One with Nature is literally always better. So that just became a dead slot, which you would think, oh wait, well doesn't that open up a slot with Ravens, since we're pretty much, you know, kind of forced into Shepherds, you know, Stampede, stuff like that in order to really make the companion build good. Well, the issue is there's an item called Mjolnir Ring. So Mjolnir Ring gives you 100% increased damage while it's active. Not only that, it actually makes everything vulnerable that it hits. And on top of that, like you can see here, I have it down to 49.5 seconds. If I go ahead and just take some points out, right, I can actually already get it down to 40.59 seconds just by putting, with just one Cataclysm cooldown reduction roll, and then putting points into it, right? So what this means is that because Mjolnir Ring buffs your Endless Tempest, so it says increases the duration of Hurricane by 15%, well, you can get up to like another +7 ranks, so this will go all the way up to 50%. You also can make it last another 4 seconds, so you can get this up to where it's going to last for about 20 seconds. Okay, you can get it to where it's going to last for 20 seconds, and I don't even have cooldown on my helmet. I don't have cooldown on like an amulet or anything like that. I don't have the Cataclysm cooldown on an amulet. So that means I could actually get the cooldown even lower. I'm actually missing about 30% cooldown, so I could actually have Cataclysm going for virtually all the time, because there's also, if we go into our Paragon, now I don't have it set up right now because I was testing out, oh, it's not, oh my gosh, it's saying I can't, it's not even letting me look at the other Paragon boards anymore. Okay, well, pretty much you can take Inner Beast. If you don't know what Inner Beast does, since we're already quick shifting around, once you hit 10 stacks of that, it'll actually reduce the cooldown of your Cataclysm by 5 seconds. We also have Spirit Boons, like Calm Before the Storm. Nature Magic skills have up to a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate skill by 2 seconds, and that's also why I'm kind of thinking about either dropping Ravens or dropping Poison Creeper in general, because you really don't need both of these. It doesn't really serve a purpose. It doesn't really help. They just don't do enough damage once you get higher up. I do think that these can do enough damage on their own if you were to focus on them, because remember, these are both damage over time effects. So if you make a creeping death build with these, Raven specifically, I think is actually going to end up being pretty solid, especially if you get an Andariel's Visage. Poison Creeper isn't going to be bad, but because it's still lacking a little umph because it doesn't have like a specific legendary, it's still just being buffed by general legendaries, right? Whereas Ravens actually now has that. Now, they're going to have to do something to the Ravens legendary if they want it to be ran, if their intention is for it to be ran over Mjolnir Ring, because right now it doesn't do enough damage in order to justify that. If they were to change this to where it says your Ravens now deal, let's say like 150 to 200% more damage, and it does all these effects, you might actually, this very well could easily be ran, because then you could use it to help shore up the fact that our AoE sucks, right? Because the stun effect is amazing, right? The defensive aspect of it is amazing. I threw Raven's active size here. If you get like 99% to your Raven's active size and you throw that down with your Stormcrow aspect, holy bejeebus, you're stunning literally everything all the time. It's fantastic. But, again, the issue here is it's just kind of a damage thing. It's like, well, Mjolnir Ring gives you 100% increased damage, plus it gives you easy access to making everything vulnerable, so then you don't have to run exploit, so you can take a more important glyph in your Paragon, and it's kind of just seeming a little bit better to go that route, because you really don't need Wolf's cooldown reduction. I know like some people might not want to give it up, because it's nice having this on a 3.5 second cooldown, but with the changes to Storm's Companion, where you have Pack Leader just resetting permanently all the time because you can buff it, like, I mean, look at this. I mean, you have a 42.2%, and this is at like a 4 out of 4, not even a 12, and this is like a mineral. For some reason, the settings aren't saving on our, let's see here, options. For some reason, the settings are not saving every single time. I have to like redo this every single time I come into the game, but yeah, so you can see here that I rolled 69% out of a potential of 92 on a 4 out of 4 Masterwork. So it's like, this is still really, really low. And then you think about if you get like a GA on this, or you get like ideally you want a GA on this and a GA on Wolves, and you're just golden, right? So yeah, but it just makes it to where cooldown's kind of a useless stat for companions, because you could just reset so easily, especially with things like Shifter existing to buff your crit. So even like if you're just at like a lower level of gear, where you don't even have gear, like my gear honestly is pretty bad. I don't have any GAs on crit. I have no Masterworks on crit, and I'm still resetting like virtually all the time. And I have, it says 32.5%, but because I run the Shifter aspect, I actually have 55, or I have like roughly, what would that be, 57% crit, which is a lot, right? So yeah, that's something to really, you know, think about there, is that you really just, you know, you can get all the cooldown you need for Cataclysm and stuff like that. You don't need the cooldown for the companions anymore. So I think Mjolnir Ring is probably going to be the way to go on Companion Druid for right now, unless they change it. If they do end up buffing the Raven's damage on this, that would be fantastic. But then again, even then, I don't know. Giving up 100% damage to your Wolves is just hard to do. But at the same time, if they do buff it, it's kind of one of those things where even though Mjolnir Ring buffs your wolves by 100%, just the fact that your AoE is so bad is reason enough to run the Ravens one over the Mjolnir ring, because you just want to be able, you just want to have more damage, right? And not only that, the whole like half the time thing is very interesting. And also, it says Ravens active deals its full damage in half the time. It's also applying to the passive, so that could be a bug and not be what it's supposed to do. But yeah, so we definitely need this to be buffed. It needs to do more, otherwise Mjolnir ring I think is going to take over. Yeah, or if they just make Mjolnir ring say it buffs storm skills by 100%, then you'd have to run Ravens, because there'd be no other option. All right, but like I said, if you run a pure Ravens build, you can run the Storm Crows for sure. If you put it in a stereotypical Wolves focus build, which is still going to be the highest damage version by miles, yeah, you're probably going to want to run Mjolnir ring. But we'll see. I still need to get better gear to really give you like a guarantee on that. But right now, it seems honestly pretty likely. Okay, so Thunderstruck still does not work with Ravens or Wolves. I do want to show you this though, because this is pretty cool. It does in fact turn Ravens into a Storm skill. You can see it's tagged here. Wolves, still Storm skill, a Nature Magic skill. However, still not proccing Thunderstruck. So, I don't know. Like I don't know. I'm not really sure why this is. I don't know if it's just a bug, but Thunderstruck does not seeming to be working. I'm not noticing a damage difference, and I have my Thunderstruck at about 40% here, because you don't actually need to focus on really putting damage to close on your gear. All you have to do is run Tracker, or Territorial, right? And you can see here I have 230% damage to close enemies, and this is going to get like another radius increase, I believe, so you'll be able to get like even more dexterity to it. And if you put it in the right one, you can easily, I think you can get up to like 400% or something like that. So you can get like the full value. And even if you can't, you can just temper on, damage to close on a couple pieces of gear. Yeah. So, and I'm not noticing like a damage difference at all. And it's 43%. So like if I'm dealing, for example, 35,000 damage with a Raven's passive attack or something like that, whenever I put this on, it should be doing like 50,000 damage, right? And it's not really changing at all. So they need to fix that. That's still not working, because this really does need to work with Ravens and Wolves, because again, it would make Ravens even better. So like if they buff this to where it did like 150% to 200 damage, pretty similar to like what aspect of the alpha does. Like, I'm not sure why this number is so low. Like they're letting the Wolves do 280% now, but for some reason Storm Crows is only 50. It's like, yeah, how about you amp this up to like 150 and also make it work with Thunderstruck, and now all of a sudden we're really, we're kind of cooking with gas at that point for Ravens, right? And even trying to work it in as a way to fix the AoE aspect of the build. And then you can always, if that is the case, what you can then do is you can just take another ring, and then depending on what you're doing, if you don't need the AoE because you're in a group, you can just run the Mjolnir ring for extra damage, right? Like if you were in a boss killer situation, right, like I was talking about, you'd always run the Mjolnir ring, because your whole group would be set up for them to do the AoE. You wouldn't need to do the AoE, right? Okay, but then Poison Creeper does feel lackluster compared to Ravens. However, with the new glyphs, it does have a bunch of multiplicative poison scalings, so it won't feel so bad if you focus purely on it. Because remember, you can run Creeping Death, and that'll help buff up like your Ravens and your Poison Creeper. The issue is that we don't have a way to do a bunch of CC, right? Like all we could proc like reliably is Immobilize and Stun, okay? And then we don't really have a slot to give up here, okay, for it. So that's kind of, but if you're running a Ravens and Poison Creeper focus build, where maybe you drop Wolves or something like that, well, now you can actually run Creeping Death. Maybe you could even drop Moonrage so you could move this here and then run like Fists of Fate or something like that. I don't know, because you wouldn't be running Aspect of the Alpha anymore necessarily. So I don't know. It'd be pretty interesting to see. I'm going to mess around with it more, especially once I find it in Darials and stuff like that. But yeah, so it has a bunch of multiplicative scalings from glyphs, so it could potentially do a decent more damage. But Poison Creeper, again, it doesn't have that thing that's, specifically buffing it, right? So it would seem that, Companion Druid is just moving towards kind of like a pick one to focus on type build, and that's going to be the best thing. Like just pick the companion that you want to do damage, and then that one will do the damage if you focus on it, okay? We are still playing quick shift style. Even with the changes, it's still very easy to get Wild Heart Hunger. Actually, Wild Heart Hunger feels easier to get up faster, which I like. Quick shift also is easier because as long as you're in wolf or bear form, the timer doesn't even go down. It just stays there, right? The only way you lose this is if you're in human form for 3 seconds, and it's very easy to weave like wolves claw, raven's claw, and like kind of weave in and out like that to always stay inside of a form like that. Same thing with heightened senses. We just don't want to give up 48% damage reduction. Like, it's just so much. Like, you just get so much out of this. Like, we really can't give this up, unfortunately. So we're still playing a quick shift play style, which is cool. We gained 15% increased damage here. We gained feral aptitude. That's pretty cool. I mean, we did get some extra passives. We are just getting kind of a lot of free damage, especially with the fact that we got 10 extra skill points, so we can also just kind of max out everything. But yeah, there is a ton of power in the Paragon now, but I'll actually go over that in a second just to show you guys what I mean in terms of the power. But that's really all I have to say about Companion Druid right now. I'll give you guys another update on Friday after I can actually max level boost and use rune words and see how that all plays into it, right? So now let's go ahead and just get into some of the leveling changes. So starting with Nightmare Dungeons, you get rewards at the end of Nightmare Dungeons again. You'll get like, multiple legendaries or something like that. However, you do not level up glyphs anymore in the Nightmare Dungeons, and you can't even level up glyphs until level 60 now. You level up glyphs in the pit now, and the Nightmare Dungeons is purely for gear and EXP. You can't do hordes until level 60. And then the best leveling is going to be Hell Tides or Nightmare Dungeons. So, for reference, I was level 50 and I sat in a Blood Maiden. I sat next to the Blood Maiden. Now, granted, people on launch aren't just going to have a bunch of Baneful Hearts, right, to just keep spam doing the Blood Maiden. But I sat next to the Blood Maiden and I went from 50 to 60 in like an hour and a half. So Hell Tides, and that was with no Profane Mind Cages or anything like that on. So Hell Tides and Nightmare Dungeons have pretty much equalized. I think they're going to be very similar in how fast that you level. It's just going to be a preference of what you do. I think if you're a slower class, the Nightmare Dungeons might end up being better because it seems like a lot of the Nightmare Dungeons have a more linear path now. It looks like they changed the layout of a bunch of dungeons. So it's much easier to just kind of straight walk forward to find the enemies. Whereas you probably need to be more mobile to do Helltide because you need to be running around. Unless you just find a group of people that are spamming the Blood Maiden. Okay, world bosses can also be done at low levels now, and they spawn much more often. So that's pretty cool. Like, I'm pretty sure if I was to open this up right now, there's probably a world boss on the map. Let's see. Don't make me look dumb. Don't make me look dumb. Oh, it's making me look dumb. Oh, it made me look so dumb. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, typically, if you open your map, there's a world boss on it. Oh wait, oh, I'm not, there it is, I told you. Oh man, I was just zoomed out too far, I guess. Oh my god, my mouse is so messed up. Yeah, okay, if you zoom out too far, you can't see it. Okay, so I still look kind of dumb, but that's fine. All right, but yeah, so world bosses pretty much need to be going like around the clock, and you can do these. Obviously, they have, a weekly bonus thing, so after you do that specific one, you don't want to do it again, but you can do these in a reasonable time frame. I did it at level 10 with a bunch of level 15s, so cool, awesome, pretty happy about that. Remember, monster level isn't actually a thing anymore. It just goes based off of the overall difficulty. You're not going to see a level next to any monster's names. So, like, Asheva isn't level like 25 while you're level 15. It's no, you're fighting normal Asheva now, or you're fighting hard mode Asheva, and that's it, right? Okay, moving right along. So I'm going to get into some of the masterworking stuff here. So Neath Iron and Ingolith are no longer a thing. Oh wait, sorry. And when it comes to like leveling, like I said, Helltides and Nightmare Dungeons are going to be the thing. Let me go ahead and show you guys these difficulties. So you have like a bunch of different difficulties here. I just want to run through this because this is kind of important. I'll get more into this later. But you have a bunch of difficulties here. So like the idea is just you level up and you just keep doing the thing that gets you the next difficulty, and you keep trying to gear up. But these get progressively harder by a pretty large margin very quickly, with Torment 4 being around the difficulty of a Pit 130 or like a Pit 135 if I was like to put a pit number on it of like what Season 5 pit difficulty it is. It is not, you do not just jump into T4, okay? But I'll get back to that later. I just wanted to point that out. So like that's going to be the plan. It's just do Nightmare Dungeons, do Helltide, and then just keep trying to unlock these as you go. And that's virtually going to be the play. It's just gearing up until you could do the next difficulty. But okay, now getting on to some of the crafting stuff. So Neath Iron and Ingolith are no longer a thing. You just use Obdusite, which now drops from Nightmare Dungeons in large quantities as well as Infernal Hordes. So only one temper on gear pre-800 that is non-ancestral, which blows. So you can see here I have 2 on this, but if you look down here on my gloves, I can only have 1. And you can only masterwork it up to 4 out of 4. I actually hate this. I think this is terrible. Give us the second tempering on our gear. There's no reason for us to not be able to temper stuff on things that are almost max item level, right? Like, oh, it has to be ancestral. It's like, dude, just make it like item power based, where once you get to a 750 item, you can put, you know, both temperings on it. It feels pretty bad to not have both your temperings, like, and it really hinders your ability to even do T4 by not, because like if you look over here, right, I'm missing a bunch of additive damage that I could be using. And whereas, because I really need to put, you know, like Cataclysm, cooldown reduction, and then a damage stat, and I'm just missing a whole damage stat. I'm also missing another damage stat. Like, I'm missing crit damage, which is a pretty big damage stat, because I have 3 different multipliers. I have Avian Wrath, and then if we go to the Paragon, I have, where's the other one? I have Spirit, giving me a 15% critical strike damage buff, and then I have, if we move, where's the other one? Where's Shifter? Oh, did I take Shifter off? I might have taken Shifter off. Oh, yeah, so you have Shapeshifter. That's giving me another 15% buff, right? So it's like I have like these 3 different buffs. So like crit damage goes a really long way for the Druid now. So yeah, it feels bad not having those temperings. It sucks. Okay, it sucks. All right. And Ancestrals are honestly pretty rare even on tier 4, which is going to get me into the next thing that I think is going to be another critique I have, is that there is no reason to do Uber bosses on T4. It is significantly harder to do T4 than a T3 Uber boss. So I can't even describe like the level difference. It's like going from like a pit 75 to like a pit 130 in difference, right? And that's not even an over exaggeration. It's a massive jump going from T3 to T4. So, and you're not guaranteed any ancestral item when you kill an Uber boss, because tormented bosses are no longer a thing. You do not get guaranteed greater affix items off of the bosses, which sucks. You do get a bunch of uniques, like you get like 5 or 6, but you do not get a guaranteed greater affix, which I also don't like. They should at least give you 1 when you kill an Uber boss. Even if it's like oh, well, you only get that when you get to T4. It's like there's no reason to farm bosses on T4 because it's so much harder for so little reward. You'll see most people farming the bosses on T3 because you're just not getting anything out of it besides just whatever unique item that you need or whatever unique item that you want, because the overworld difficulty is the same as the pit tier that you unlock it at. Remember that. It's important. So like if you're barely clearing that world tier 4, you know, pit 65 that it takes to unlock, well, you probably shouldn't even go into World Tier 4 because the overworld mobs are going to be that exact same difficulty. So, yeah. So, no reason to do Ubers on T4. You just don't get a guaranteed any Ancestral gear, which sucks. Like, dude, Ancestrals are really rare, and I understand why they're doing that, but they need to up the drop rate. Like, it's just bad. Like, they really need to up the drop rate, or at least make it to where when you do Ubers, you get some guaranteed greater affix things. Now, keep in mind that Infernal Hordes should still have that. So I think Infernal Hordes might end up being the way to go, but Infernal Hordes are not out on the PTR yet. So I'll have to, like, I might eat my words on that, but I can let you guys know about that, you know, on Friday when it happens. Another thing, okay, so now, and that is going to kind of wrap back around to the Paragon board, in that there is a ton of power in the Paragon board. So, like, for reference, if we really look at my gear, right, so I have a 50% Bistro Rampage, okay? I have, you know, a Storm's Companion, I have Tyrell's Might. I actually have okay gear, right? Not ancestral, but okay, right? It was relatively difficult for me to unlock World Tier 4, even though I had. So I didn't have I think all I had when I went to unlock World Tier 4 was my Wild's Glyph was legendary. So I had this legendary Wild's Glyph giving me all this damage. Right, so you look here. Let's go ahead and go over to Wild. Sorry if you guys can hear that train. Oh my gosh, why is there a train going here now? But anyways, sorry. But yeah, so 584% companion damage, 130% multiplicative increased passive damage, 35% just multiplicative companion damage in general, and like and I'm sitting here like, and it was like the boss was easy. The boss was very easy, but like actually clearing the dungeon was a little tough because, you know, I lack AoE. So I'm just kind of sitting here like, holy crap, like, like you have to farm a lot. Like, Companion Druid is a pretty strong build, and it's going to continue to be a strong build in going into, Vessel of Hatred. And like, imagine if you're playing a build that's like a lesser, like you're gonna have, before you can even get into tier 3 or tier 4, you're gonna have to farm the crap out of your glyphs. You're gonna have to farm the crap out of Paragon, because I'm also Paragon 211. Like, imagine if I was trying to get World Tier 4 and I'm not Paragon 200, right? Like, that's gonna be a little tough. That's gonna be a little tough, right? Like, it's like, yeah, I'm ahead of the curve here by picking this character. So if I'm, starting a new season with 0 Paragon, like, oof, holy crap, and I even had this. I got Untamed. I have like a whole companion board made for me, which, by the way, this isn't as good as it looks. It's like they gave us like a, I don't know, it's like maybe like a 16% damage buff to Ravens and Poison Creeper, and it's like a 8 to 12% damage buff for Wolves and whenever you have like maximum ranks, which is still cool, but this isn't really all that great when you compare it to like, Heightened Malice, which is just giving you 45% damage, or Ancestral Guidance, which is giving you 30% damage, or any of the other, or this right here gives you 60% damage. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's not super great, but at the same time, I'll take it. It's still a buff, so why not? Why not, right? And this board's pretty cool. But yeah, so, yeah, there's just so much power in the Paragon, right? Like, you're going to have to do a lot of farming before you're going to be able to get into World Tier 3, World Tier 4. So, but Paragon is a lot more straightforward. So just to kind of show you guys a little bit about how Paragon works now. So you go into the pit at level 60, and you can start upgrading these. If you have played D3, it works exactly like D3. You get to the end of the pit, you have like a chance, depending on the tier, to rank it up. And then if you're like substantially a higher tier than what the glyph level is, it'll go up by 2 instead of 1. I haven't ever seen it go up by 3, but I haven't done a pit tier high enough to justify that. So who knows, maybe you could also get it to go up by 3 each time. But that means you can maximum get it to go up 8 times in a single pit if you're doing a higher level pit. And it's a very, very low level, right? So yeah, like I leveled up my territorial very fast by doing 55s, because until I got up to about until I got up to like 38 or something like that, that's when it jumped down to where I was only getting 1 a go, or 1 per time. And you also get to upgrade it 4 times. I believe it's 3 and then plus 1 as long as you did not die during the rift. So yeah, these go all the way up to 100 now. They have a multiplicative buff that also scales with the rank, so increases your companion damage by 35%. Every time I upgrade this, it's going to go up by like another 0.35%, and it's going to cap out at around like a 53% multiplicative increase to companion damage, and then I'm going to get all the way up to like 1200% additive companion damage. Same thing with critical strike damage. So at least especially for like companion druid, when I say like there's a lot of power in this, if I get 1000% critical strike damage, it's actually worth a lot more than that, because I have 2 things that are scaling it. These are both going to get up to be around 30% multiplicative, so I actually get almost double the value out of any crit damage that I take, right? So like me taking, if I have 90% multiplicative crit because of Avian Wrath and these Paragon glyphs, it's like if I get 1000 crit damage, I'm actually getting 2000. I went and I looked it up and I did the math. I should be able to get, so right now I'm at 2000 crit damage. I'm probably going to get up to somewhere around like 5k crit damage whenever I'm like max geared, greater fixed, masterworked out the A, crit damage and chance for wolves to deal double damage on this, all that. And by the way, this is insane. Like, this companion tempering is insane. I really don't care that we lost the ability to put damage on this, because we can just put a general damage increase on it. It's like, okay, whatever. I think Ravens and Poison Creeper might care a little bit, because they actually had very large additive damage increases. But I mean, hey, we lost it for the chance for wolves to deal double damage. And this is another reason too why I think when it comes to companion druid, it's becoming more of a pick one, because you only get to pick one of these, and you can do wolves, ravens, or poison creeper. So depending on which one of these you pick is going to like really show like which one of these is going to do a bunch of damage, right? Okay, so anyway, so back to the Paragon, and just to show you guys some other ones, you have like with human, you get increased nature magic damage, you get increased damage to injured enemies, increased damage while werewolf form, increased damage while healthy. So pretty cool stuff, and these go all the way up to 100. And notice that they have like these legendary ones that I have like a really massive radius. I think this goes up one more time. So you're going to be able to like really fill out some of these slots and get a bunch of extra like intelligence and stuff like that. And that might end up even being like a factor in like how you put stuff up, because like they put these weird gaps in a lot of the boards now, so you can't just get like a ton of stats. I guess I think they should just fill these up, because it's just kind of awkward. Like if this like size radius thing is going to increase again, it's like, why not? Like, yeah, like why not? But it also makes me wonder if it's going to actually get to the point where it could get out here, because I think if it increases in size twice, it would go like 1, 2, and it'd be all the way out here. But I don't know. We'll see on Friday. I'll know whenever I'm able to boost stuff up. I'm pretty much done playing with this until we actually get to Friday, because there's not really anything for me to do. Like, I would just be grinding to be able to boost things, you know, to be able to boost it up on Friday. So I've already like tested out some of the leveling. The leveling's, you know, obviously virtually the same as it has been. Do Hell Tides, do Nightmare Dungeons, right? It's just a little bit, there's just a little bit more of a curve to it now, where you're not just going to be able to like jump into, you know, World Tier 3 and then all of a sudden jump into World Tier 4. That it's going to be a much more relaxed curve, to say the least. A couple of my friends actually have leveled all the way to 50 so far, and they said the leveling experience is way better. It's more of a nice curve, more of a challenge, so pretty sweet stuff. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed this update, and peace.